السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. أنا عبدالله الراشد مدير البرامج في إثراء.
Assalamu alaikum, Masal here. My name is Robert Frith. I'm the curator for Tanween and creative director for the Idea Lab here at Ithra. So this evening we're going to talk about the creative economy, and it's really the basis for why Tanween exists and why the Idea Lab is here at Ithra. It's really one of our missions is to promote and develop the creative industries and economy in the kingdom and the talent that's here. So what is the creative economy? Well, it's those industries, individual creativity, skill and talent, which have potential for wealth and job creation. And it's exploitation of intellectual property. So it's your ideas turned into productive, meaningful actions to create wealth and well-being. So we do that in two ways for Tanween. We want to develop the creative industry, so we do it with skills and workshops and creating and making stuff to really learn from it and get things out there. And we do it by promoting innovative thinking. So creativity doesn't just happen in a creative job and in a creative industry, and we've talked a lot about that today. It happens across sectors, across industries. This is a speaker from our first Tanween in 2018, Dr. Shafi Ahmed, who's using VR technology to do his surgery and to train the next generation of surgeons. He trained 20,000 surgeons at once, one surgery, using Snapchat. He can take this to scale, and that's creativity. There they are, those two combined, creative industries and innovative thinking. Fantastic.
And then I want to take you back to 2013, where this all started, at least for us here in Ithra. So in 2013, Ithra Cinema was actually on paper called a multimedia theater, because we couldn't call it a cinema at that time. The scene was completely different. The regulation was completely different, and the country as a whole and the nation was in a completely different setting. But it was in one of those evenings in 2013 that we launched the Creativity Forum. It was the first gathering of creatives in the kingdom, local, regional, and international. One might think, well, okay, so you've gone from a small event of 100 people to one that's here today with a few thousand. But actually, if you look at the headlines that made the news on that day and the day after when we launched this, our commitment here at Ithra was always to create a movement, develop an entire ecosystem, not just for the creatives, the businesses, but even broader. And that's what happened on that night in 2013. And it involved the individuals that came by and stopped by. I wonder today if any of those here that are either working at Ithra or in the audience that witnessed that night. But what I do know is that the ripple effect of that night and the conversations and the artists, the makers that were there, really transformed their practice over those last 7 years.
So what has happened since that time? So since 2013, cultural and creative industries have grown globally. You know, this isn't just something that Saudi's doing. Every country in the world is really being empowered by creativity and their cultural industries. You know, these are big numbers, $2.3 trillion, 3% of the world's GDP is from cultural and creative industries, nearly 30 million jobs. And 12% annual growth. This is real growth and opportunity happening. You know, in countries like Brazil, it's 10% of their economy now. In the US, how big is that economy? And it's 10% of their economy. So what do you think it is in Saudi? Shout out if you want.
Anybody have an idea?
Are we up there with 10%?
Percentage in Saudi? 30? 30? Other shouts? 5? Less than 1? So it's 0.02%. Oh. I mean, maybe the data gathering around this isn't as robust as some of the other countries, but at least it's an indicator. This is a very new industry in the kingdom. If I want to help grab this, I wanted to think, for example, advertisement, which is one of the largest in terms of at least monetary value. How many of those agencies are from Saudi? How many of them are new? How many of them have just came about and localized in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years? What were we doing 10 years ago when it comes to those creative sectors? And if we look at each, fashion, food, architecture, and the various other verticals of the creative industry, we're really at just the start. And that's what we here at Ithra are committing to. So what we wanted to spend a few minutes on is we wanted to give you 5 reasons why we believe that you should support and be part of the creative economy and the creative industry. First, and I think we've brushed up on this a little bit, is that it makes huge economic sense. It makes economic sense on a national scale. It makes economic sense on a business scale, but even on an individual scale. I know that about 40–50% of those who are here today from yesterday's talk are business owners. I just want you to think about how many creative services and products you engage with. Either you produce or you consume. So we've seen that more than double between 2002 and 2015. There's huge demand, and that demand is expected to grow monumentally. And something I can speak to as well as somebody who leads a team is that it makes amazing and great leaders and individuals as well as teams. We are faced in a world that's unbelievably unpredictable, probably more so than any other era of time. I remember, even in large corporations, plans were 10-year plans. Then they became 5-year plans. They now just do 3-year plans, and they do strategic intents. The reason behind that is that the ground shifts a lot faster, and the variables are much more volatile. The people who are best equipped to be resilient against that are the creatives.
It's also sustainable. You know, creativity is a fantastic and diverse industry. It involves a whole broad demographic, you know, from the youngest child to the oldest grandparent. They're consumers of creativity, they're creators of creativity, they're telling stories, they're involved in making. It's across the whole industries. It's agnostic to what industry, you will have creativity within it. That means it reaches the whole of society. And it also links back to our cultures. It's a defender of our culture and brings that sustainable nature of bringing back memories of our cultures and preserving it and taking it to the future, reimagining it for the future. It's sustainable. And it's crucial for the future of work. We've gone through so much change this year, and it was changing before we had the wonderful 2020, but it's going to keep on changing. So you're going to need to be creative to work with your new colleagues, and those colleagues could be robots, they could be home workers, they could be across the planet, they could be off planet. And crucially, it's about people. You know, we talked about that broad demographic, but it's people empowering. The creativity isn't going to come from a machine, it's going to come from each and every one of you in that team, in your workplace, and at home. So, it's a skill, right? Creativity is a skill. This is the top skill you need for the future of work, identified by Forbes for 2030. So you're going to really need to develop and grow this skill over the next 10 years to really make a contribution. And this is why it's sustainable. 87% of creative jobs are at low or no risk of automation. You're going to have this skill, and it's going to empower you for years to come. So, this is a little advert the UK government brought out about a month ago in light of COVID. So they were saying, like, the creative industries, you need to change, you need to move on to be, Fatima's next job could be in cyber. And you need to move on from creative industry. She's not going to be a ballerina anymore. We can't fill theatres for people to be ballerinas. But look at all the creative jobs, just this one advertisement created. And let's look more locally. You know, here's all the jobs that created this one post on Instagram. We've got stylists, we've got creative managers, we've got photographers, we've got jewelry designers, magazine editors, artists, picture framers. Imagine all the diverse skill sets that you need to contribute to this one post. Isn't that empowering? So, all those jobs, let's look back. Let's learn from our past, right? So this is 1881, this is a census, and these were the jobs that people identified they were doing in 1881. They're quite fantastical, these job titles. Gymnast to a house painter, invisible net maker, turnip shepherd. I have no idea what these jobs are, but people selected them. They said, this is what I do, this is my career, and this is how I make a living. Let's move forward a bit. And these are the jobs that have just been created in the last 10 years. They feel quite familiar to us, but they're so young. You know? An app designer, UX, UI designer, social media manager. Social media is still a baby, but it's so familiar to us. You can have a career out of it now. But then let's look forward. Okay, so this is some of the projections of jobs for the future. Now this sounds more like 1881 to me, but this is only for 10 years' time. A robot counselor, a biofilm installer. I have no idea what these jobs are going to entail, but they're for you to create. And this reminded me of a quote my old professor from the Royal College used to say. And he was like, my job at the Royal College of Art was to make my students unemployable. Why would a professor at university want to make you unemployable? Well, because he wanted to empower you to make your own job. He was going to give you the skills to go out there, not get a job, but make a job. And I think that's where we are in terms of we want to empower the people in this room, the people online, anybody that comes to Ithra to make their own future. Okay, this is a little bit personal, and this is my personal journey of a career. And I think, you know, this is something you need to be comfortable with in terms of those job titles are going to change. You're not going to have the same job for the rest of your life. That's why you need to be creative. So, do I need to go in detail here? No, well, I'm not going to, but, you know, from bull handler to potter to mural painter, Dad is my favorite one. And currently, I'm a Tanween curator, but who knows what the next year, 5 years, or 10 years is going to bring. Maybe I can be one of those cloud knitters or something. Okay.
But it's not just about the jobs, it's about the skills. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, in just 5 years, creativity has jumped from being 10th on the top skills required for future jobs to 3rd. This is a ranking board, really. And to go up 7 places in just 5 years tells you just how high of an importance there is on this intangible asset. We're moving on from tangible, direct skills from an industrial revolution to one that is based on a knowledge economy, one that focuses more on thought, mindset, and the ability to create. And that's really that's the answer to what next that we've been asking for the last 2 days. Is what next has centered around what can I do? How do I prepare? What is the future? The answer is, well, you just need to have that skill set, adaptability, flexibility to be able to cope with whatever comes forward. And we here at Ithra have been trying to embody that for over a decade. In 2014, some of the gentlemen here launched the Ithra Knowledge Program. I'll pause here for a second. I don't know, have any of you visited Ithra Knowledge or Ithra al-Ma'rifah when it was here? If maybe you can hear a round of applause for those who were there. That's all the way. And so take that back. That's roughly 7 or 8 years ago. And it was really centered around one question. How do you take Ithra, which has not been built yet, and move it around the country? And that was Ithra Knowledge. It was a theater, it was a creative space, it was an art studio, it was hosting a Picasso in a temporary tent in humid Saudi Arabia in the summer. That took ingenuity, that took creativity, that took resolution of unbelievable challenges and unpredictable variables. And that's what we did. And it grew and grew, and in the end reached over 2 million people. How do you take reading and readers and make them role models? How do you make them compete with social media stars? How do you take them and make them celebrities? And that's what we try to do with the iRead program for the last 6 years, and we'll celebrate it next week, inshallah. We try and expand, first of all, the meaning of reading. It's not really reading the book or the literary word. It's about a broad sense of reading, reading of art, reading of abstractness, and reading of the literature itself. But also, it's about presenting that, showcasing that knowledge and sharing it with others, with creatives, performing on stage with a creative artwork behind you that you've designed based on your literary experience. And maybe something much more closer this year. How do you celebrate Eid with everybody locked indoors? We sat down, I remember this with many of the individuals here from our team. We sat down and we thought, we have a mission. Our mission is to catalyze and enable the creative industry. But a big part of that, too, is giving people hope and giving people joy. So Eid is around the corner. People are locked in. How do you respond to that? Our initial idea, just to give you a bit about the process, was we wanted to create the largest virtual reality artwork in the world. We wanted to do a virtual reality installation across Saudi Arabia, whereby anybody in Saudi Arabia would go up the rooftops, use their phones, interact with a virtual augmented reality artwork, and engage. That didn't work. We adapted, we moved, and then in the end, we delivered on what was Eid on Wheels, or the Eid Parade. And some of these ideas appear very, they appear very understandable or predictable now. But really, ingenuity and creativity in terms of the process is addressing the challenge when many people have stopped. And that's been Ithra's story for the past 6 or 7 years, even though we've only opened for 2. And really culminates in Tanween. Tanween, for the past 3 years, has been trying to be the formal, official, and biggest platform for that. The region's largest creativity forum, over 170,000 people, speakers, talks, workshops, master classes, installations, public audience, and experts that come here and convene. But a lot of it actually comes from the building itself and the vision that was there when Aramco and the visionaries behind it wanted to do this building. Many people ask, why this shape? Why commit to this architecture? You could do this exact same mission in a square building. But Ithra, as a monument, as an iconic structure, invites you to hope. It permits you to have hope. It tells you that if it's impossible or if it's difficult, you can be creative, you can be ingenious, and you can find a way. The amount of work, engineering ingenuity that came into the building Ithra, the 10-year process to deliver this building in the end, is what we started with and we continue to build on. And it's on the exterior, but it's also on the interior itself. There are many hidden gems about the creativity Ithra here, whether it's the pipes that wrap around the building or the rammed earth that circles the plaza that's dug up from the undergrounds of the building itself. But it's not about just the brick and mortar of it. It's about the people. And that's the true mission of what Ithra is. And we come from the same earth. The nomads, the Bedouins, were the essence of creativity. They're restricted by resources. They're restricted by unpredictable, harsh environments. They're restricted by mobility. And they're restricted by many factors. But yet, they find a way to survive. They innovate, they upscale, they raise their level of living and continue to move forward. So it's in our DNA, whether it's tangible in the things that we hold or the intangible tools that we have.
I'm actually going to just take you back there. I saw something. Tools. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. Next year, the theme for Tanween is going to be tools. And we're going to... So keep that in mind. Don't tell anybody, tell everybody, okay? All right. So those tools, those additional tools of a nomad using their resources efficiently and navigating their land and making a living. And now we're still nomads today. You know, the landscape has bigger, the roads are longer, but we're moving faster. You really need to be as creative as those nomads to, really produce, to trade, to communicate, and it will build a fantastic culture and grow. So, and it will take you to a new next. So from this evening, tomorrow, the day after, we're going to explore our theme, the new next. And maybe cyber can be a little bit more ballerina, and Fatma can explore her cyber self. So ultimately, it's not about the creative economy. It's the creatives economy. It's you guys, it's every individual that's going to make it happen and who's going to reap the benefits of a rich and fruitful and joyful and hopeful career.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much. So I think Hessa's supposed to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, but I had a deal with Robert. I'm going to ask him one question on stage, and he gets to ask me one question on stage. So you can prepare a question. So my question, Robert, is that you've transitioned from being a creative in yourself to designing for creatives. Is that a purposeful choice? Did it happen by chance? How is it different?
Oh gosh, was it purposeful? As you saw, my career job titles are pretty wiggly, maybe we'll call it wiggly.
I can't claim that mine were anything close to that.
So I enjoy making things. My materials have changed over the years, but I've always enjoyed working with other people and seeing them flourish, seeing them be the best creatives they can be. And I take joy in the fact when we work together, we create something new. And neither of us knew what was going to come out of it. But we took the risk, we took the chance, and we did that. I love setting that up. I love enabling people to do that because it's a difficult process. To trust, to be prepared to fail. It's not comfortable. Hakeem Jomaz, talked about it earlier today about how hard that is. How much you have to kind of take that leap of faith, and it gets you in the belly. You're going, well, this is a big risk. But to get people through that risk and then realize that you have a fantastic idea, and neither of you know where it came from, that's what I still enjoy.
All right.
So, you're my boss, right?
Yep.
And there's lots of fantastic creatives within Ithra.
Yeah.
What's it like trying to manage us lot?
Everybody's easy, Robert's difficult, but that aside. No, I think managing creatives and creative teams is very different than managing others. I have my boss in the room too, and maybe this is also something new for him. But no, I think creatives are, I think by nature, a little bit more opinionated. They're a little more tenacious about their process, maybe not their idea. And so as somebody who leads a team that has very wide creativity, from museum creators to film producers to idea generators and enablers, the best skill I think I can have is, of course, I mean, some are basic leadership skills. Yeah? You need to listen, you need to give everybody their space. But I think the biggest one is, one, you need to empower to almost uncomfortable degrees, because you need to trust the process rather than trust the idea or the outcome. So the process will lead you there rather than the actual project. But that needs to be balanced, because empowering just on its own would mean you're leaving everybody to do their thing. That needs to be balanced by your role to protect the overall direction and strategy of what's going to happen. And I think that's the key of trying to manage the creative industries that I've been very blessed to experience for the past few years.
Thank you, Abdullah, and thank you, Robert. That was an amazing, fantastic different, unbelievable. شباب مسك sorry إثراء لازم أشجعهم. ممكن حييهم؟ يعطيكم ألف عافية. Okay, we have a virtual question from our audience. How did Vision 2030 influence the creative industries in Saudi? How do you imagine it will look like in 2030 without or with it?
I'm going to comment on one aspect of the question. I think that's a very big question, but I think, so if we take the second part, it asks, how do you imagine our future with or without the creative industries development? I think one thing that was mentioned in nuance in the talk, if some of you picked, is that there's an amazing coupling between the creative industry and the culture in general. It's creatives and creative industries are an incredible means of telling our story. And in the past, and I think for many years, we've had to rely on either external talent or external services to tell our own story. Whether it's visual, whether it's literal, whether it's audible, whether it's communication-based. And I think the biggest change that will happen in the next 5 or 7 years, if the creative industry grows too, is that we will have more authentic Saudi stories and more authentic local means of telling them. I don't know if you wanted to comment anything.
I completely agree. I mean, today you could see those voices on this stage, and I think that was fantastic to see. And, you know, what do we imagine it to look like? Well, that's up to you guys. You've got to imagine it and make it happen, right? And the creative industries will be part of that. It has to be. And it's great that there's been a vision. You know, that this, I think it's great to work for Abdullah and all the team and the management here in Aramco, is that they had a vision that I could get behind. And they're empowering me to help them fulfill that vision. I think that's great. And the kingdom's doing the same thing, you know, and I think you all have your own visions to help fulfill. And what did Fatin say earlier? Ask for help. You've got a vision, ask for help to fulfill that vision. I think that's a great message.
Great.
Thank you Abdullah and thank you Robert. إن شاء الله راح يقدم لكم الآن زميلي فيصل الحوار اللي بعد كذا. Last but not least. Thank you so much.
Thank you.